All right, very good. So we are live. It's Gary Meek living in Sacramento. And we've been going through this whole piece, what the buyer transaction looks like. And we are to one of my favorite pieces, the TC, the transaction coordinator, transaction manager, paper pusher. You'll hear all these names. Everybody's got a little different name for it. The reason I love this part so much is because Annette is my TC. Her and my wife have been friends for a long time. And she makes my life super simple. She actually is going to walk you through a bunch of the paperwork. So that's kind of what she is. So that's kind of what she does. And I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name's Annette Wise, and I've been a transaction coordinator for 13 years now, licensed real estate agent for 11 years. So I am an active full-time transaction coordinator, and I got licensed just to be better at what I do. I've worked for multiple agents, multiple brokers, and love what I do. Love working with people.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. So we're going to walk through the process, and you guys have been getting videos from me all through the process because I want you to understand the process as the buyer before you really get into the situation, so you're not looking around going, what do I do? And so now we're going to walk through the process. So we talked about this. You guys saw pretty houses at an open house, online, whatever, came to me through referral or met me somewhere and said, hey, we really like pretty houses. I said, hey, here's my lender. You went and got pre-approved with one of our amazing folks. And then you came back to me with that pre-approval. And so then we went out and looked at pretty houses. You guys found out which one you liked based on a couple that we looked at. We made an offer. We did our negotiations. The offer's been accepted. And now our TC is really going to step in. So the offer's been accepted, and I send a message, an email to escrow, to the lender, to the listing agent, and to my transaction manager, Miss Annette. And then she kind of takes it from there. So why don't you tell us kind of what your process is? What are they going to see from you and hear from you in the next coming 21 to 31 days?
Got it. So once I get that email showing that we're in contract, of course, Gary will share your contact information, buyer's contact information with me. I'll reach out to the buyer and introduce myself. Usually within about 7 days, the seller has a responsibility to deliver all seller's disclosures. Gary and I will review those for accuracy, make sure nothing's missed. Once we know we have our final version, I will email those to said buyer for review, and then we'll send them out via DocuSign. If my buyer has asked me, hey, don't load up my email, I'll just send it via DocuSign, I'll review there. That's fine, whatever preference is. Of course, any questions while you go through the DocuSign process, you can reach out to myself or Gary. Once those are all signed, typically we get the bulk in within about 7 days. Things tend to trickle, things that were missed or come up because of oh my gosh, there's solar on the house, that generates a disclosure. Oh, now we have HOA docs, that's going to generate a DocuSign for signature acknowledgement. So any reports, inspections, anything like that that comes through will be sent to buyer for acknowledgement, signature via DocuSign. Once we hit contingency periods that I'm sure Gary will cover, typically they're anywhere between 10 and 21 days, depending on what we're talking about. Contingency releases will happen when Gary and said buyer have conversation about it, and then Gary will have me send out that contingency removal, which will also come via DocuSign. Fast forward, getting close to close of escrow. I'm trying to think of what my part would be in that. Again, any new documents that come up, I'll get them out to the buyer. And then once we close, I'll share a completed filed link so that you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, have access to all the documents that you signed, all reports. It'll be in a nice little neat package. You just click on the link and you can download your, complete purchase package, contracts, disclosures, reports, what have you, down to your own system. So that's pretty much it from my side of it. I just make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed and all the legal documents are done fully and correctly. And that's about start to finish.
Gotcha. Very cool. So you guys heard from Annette that, she does a lot in the back end, and that makes it so that I can be out showing you guys houses. She's managing all the paperwork on the backside. I know you go through it, you do this every single day, all day long for multiple agents, not just myself, my team. Well, let's go to the very beginning. You mentioned a couple words, and I remember I'm teaching this to the brand new buyer, so we go over some things multiple times. So let's talk about that word disclosures. Not everybody knows what that means, and I've gone over it a couple times, but like I said, I like to have it reiterated. What are some of the major disclosures that you see on a regular basis that maybe someone misses initials, or makes an error because they just missed a box? Let's talk through some of that stuff.
Well, one of the biggest things that Gary and I look for when we first receive disclosures from the seller side is that basically there's two main disclosures that are specific to that house. There's a lot of general disclosures, but specific to that property is a seller property questionnaire and a transfer disclosure statement. It's not unusual for a seller to miss certain things, skip boxes, not give information. So we'll review for that. Those things might be, hey, you didn't mention any remodel on here, Mr. Seller, but we know that those bathrooms have been remodeled, so we'll send it back and say, hey, we need a little more information on here. Those are things that sometimes get missed. Sometimes things like, hey, there's an easement. There's another word that we'll cover, I'm sure, but there's an easement, and utilities. There's utility easement on the side yard of the house or whatever. Those are things that we also watch for, but mostly it's property condition and making sure that those things are covered. If there's a school behind the house that has some noise issues, or doesn't, but those things need to be revealed. But tends to get missed that Gary and I, or whoever your agent is, and I will watch for is property condition. Especially stuff that it's obvious, we don't know what we don't know, but sellers have a responsibility to disclose any information that's asked.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, we're going to order reports, and I've talked to the folks through this whole process, is home inspection, pest inspection, roof inspection, mold inspection, sewer inspection, well inspection, septic inspection. There's a ton of those.
Pool inspection. Yeah.
Yep, pool inspection. There you go. That one as well. And those are things that also are going to come back to you, and you're going to say, hey, these things are going to be a part of our package. And then those will need to be signed, that the buyer also got a copy of those, understands what's going on. And then sometimes the buyer might say, hey, the house is only 4 years old. I'm going to go ahead and skip a bunch of inspections. And that's the buyer's choice. I mean, I always recommend as many inspections as we can. It's like an insurance policy that they're really buying to make sure they don't get a lemon or something that's got a bunch of damage. And then, of course, if they pass on inspections, there's special documents that need to be signed if they're not getting those inspections, right?
That's correct. It would be a waiver. And there's even the case where sometimes the sellers do inspections up front.
Yep.
So at the time that you receive seller's disclosures, you may also get inspection reports that the seller had completed before you got into contract, which, of course, you can choose to go with those inspections or use those as well as your own. Regarding the waivers, if the seller provided inspection reports and you're not going to have your own inspections done, you'll still get a waiver. So the only time you use a waiver is if you're not having inspections completed during, day one of your getting into contract to day 30. So if they were done before, the waiver's just saying I'm waiving them during my contract period, but I'm acknowledging these other ones that I received.
Yeah, gotcha. Another thing that Annette does really, really great for me is she keeps me on task, and she has this wonderful calendar that she creates for us through the process. Hey, this is day 1. Day 3, your earnest money deposits in, but in the email that she sends out to, everybody, it says, here's the day for this, here's the day for this. Because I don't know those things, because I don't know how to count very well. So Annette does that for us, and you will understand what the timeline is. So when we talk about a contingency release, whether that's an inspection contingency or an appraisal contingency or the loan contingency, you'll know that set date at the very beginning on day 1. Ultimately,
that's right.
2, depending on if we get into contract on a Saturday. But ultimately, you're going to know all the drop dead dates through the entire process because of how Annette runs our ship.
That's right. And keep in mind with that if the due date falls on a Saturday, a Sunday, or a holiday, it automatically bounces to the next business day. So, if it's 7 days and 7 days lands on Sunday, and then Monday is a holiday, your due date actually becomes the Tuesday following, which I would line out in that timeline as well at the beginning of escrow. But it's good to know that sometimes you actually get extra days just due to how the calendar falls.
Yeah, exactly. So you talked about DigiSign, or you say DocuSign. So we use
DocuSign.
But you use DocuSign,
yeah,
which are both electronic signature platforms. And I know there's some others, Authentic Sign and other else. What other software systems do you use, even if they may not see it, that you use to help us all kind of stay in line?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. So with EXP specifically, EXP uses SkySlope. So not only are you getting Gary's eyes on documents, my eyes on documents, but I upload all of the documents for this purchase contract into EXP SkySlope system, and auditors then have third eye on there, and they review all documents to make sure if something passed through Gary and Gary didn't see it, passed through me and I didn't see it, there's a third set of eyes that they say, hey, this checkbox wasn't checked or whatever. And then it comes back to us. So it's a great third set of eyes to look at documents so that nothing is missed. And then I store everything in Dropbox. So that's where the file is shared from at the end of escrow, is you'll get a file share email from me for Dropbox. Doesn't mean that you have to sign up for it or pay for Dropbox. You just click on the link and you have access to the documents. But for me, it's my preferred platform because no matter where I am, I could be on vacation somewhere and Gary could say, hey, Annette, what's that contract or whatever? I need this particular document, and I can send it from my phone. So it's just my preferred method of storage. And it's a good storage system in terms of sharing files later on.
Okay.
As far as other platforms, really, probably not a whole lot that would anything else that would affect the buyer.
Gotcha. Okay. And then we talk about communication in our, just interaction with our buyers. And we always try and find out who likes text message, who likes email, who likes phone calls.
Sure.
I'm a weirdo, and I still like phone calls. My wife only communicates via text as much as she can. And, we try and meet the buyer's needs for that. Is there one way that you prefer, or is there a way you do not communicate with people?
What I prefer is just the buyer let me know what works best for them, because all the systems work great for me. Some people are on their emails and prefer email communication. Some people barely check their emails and say, hey, if they're going to send something, text me, because I need to know it's in my email. So when I send out my introduction email, it would be great to know, hey, Annette, the best way to reach me, the best communication for me is whatever. I'll make a note on your file, and I'm happy to communicate that way in whatever system works best.
Okay, very, very good. And then let's talk about, we don't want to bombard you at all hours of the night. What does your basic schedule look like? We as agents, when a buyer calls and they say, hey, 6 o'clock on a Saturday night, I want to see this house because it came on the market and it's the perfect one, I'm usually going to jump up and run out and show that property. But I'm probably not going to send you documents at 6 o'clock.
Which is why I'm an admin. So I have an 8 to 6 schedule. Okay. Always, in case of emergency, I will always be there. It's just the nature of real estate and the nature of just wanting to be a helpful person. The boundary is important because I do get a lot of 10 p.m., 11 p.m. texts. So typically, 8 to 5, 8 to 6 is good, but always in that case of emergency, I'll help. But business hours, or banking hours,
Banking hours, there you go, Well, ultimately, buyers are going to reach out to me first. Like I said, they're going to have communication with you, and you're going to help through the transaction. I'm their agent. I'm the one that's, the responsibility falls on me, and you're obviously an extension of me, and we would only hire the best. But we also want to know that you have a life. So we want you to be able to spend time with your family as well.
Sure. And anytime, emails are fine any time of the day. So if you get in contract on a Saturday, feel free to send anything to me. It may be Monday before I get response out, but sending emails anytime is fine.
Very cool. Well, Annette, thank you so much for being on my call with me today and helping me to get this information out to buyers and help them in their process of purchasing a house. And like I said, the main thing for this is to help people understand the process realize that it's really not this big, huge, daunting task. And if we can spell it out for you ahead of time, by the time you get into this part of the process and they're dealing with you, they're like, oh yeah, I've done this before. Annette's going to handle everything. It's going to be perfectly smooth like it is every time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're here to help. We're streamlined, and there's really nothing scary about it when you have a great team behind you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. Have yourself a wonderful day.
My pleasure. Thank you, Gary.
Thanks again. Take care. Bye.
Bye.